What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and this is going to be my comprehensive analysis and review of the weapon refines of Gunnthra, Fjorm, Grima's, Gerome, Dorcas, and also Spring Catria. And I will also go over many of the builds that you can run with their new refine. So if you do end up enjoying these kinds of analysis videos, I would really appreciate if you could debuff the like and subscribe button just like Gunnthra. So that said, let us begin. So absolutely the star of this weapon refinery batch is Gunnthra. She has got an extremely powerful weapon refine, and I would argue that even just after her remix, she got a really massive upgrade in Chilling Seal 2, which made her a lot more self-sufficient. But this weapon refine takes it to another level because she is just pretty much the best Green Mage Cavalier in the game now. So Blizzard Tome still has the Broadleaf Fan effect, which can also be considered like a reverse Blade Tome effect. So basically any kind of debuffs on the foe gets added to your attack stat. So that allows her to hit really hard, especially when Chilling Seal 2 is a self-sufficient skill that she has got, and she can pretty much debuff all stats of the opponent in a sense. She also gets the -4 speed and resistance debuff on foe during the combat if they are above 75% HP. And finally, the refine effect requires her to be above 25% HP, and if that condition is met, then she's going to be getting the Pelagian effect. This is really similar to Male Morgan's weapon refine as well, and it's essentially a debuff doubler on the foe. If you're not familiar with the Pelagian effect, then I would highly suggest you to check out my Male Morgan's weapon refine review where I did explain the Pelagian effect in depth, but by now we have seen a lot of Pelagian weapons, so basically this kind of effect can just double down on her debuffing potential and just allows her to get extra stats, extra firepower, and that is great because she doesn't have to depend on any other ally for the debuffs or anything like that. She already has Chilling Seal 2, which is really amazing. So Gunnthra ends up being a really powerful nuke. Even at low merges, her damage output is going to be extremely high, but that does not mean that she's invincible. You still have to watch out for Brave Hector's Malted weapon refine, and as sad as it is, Gunnthra is going to be having trouble against Brave Hector despite the weapon strangle advantage because Malted will just neutralize any kind of debuffs. And I've actually tried this matchup many times myself. Gunnthra can chunk him for a bit of damage, but it's really hard for her to kill him outright because debuffs are gonna get neutralized by his Malted. You also have to watch out for Slick Fighter and other debuff neutralization skills and opponents, so that's something that you have to keep in mind while using Gunnthra. But if they don't have any of those things, then they're absolutely getting obliterated by her high damage output. And it doesn't even matter if they have weapon strangle advantage against her because she will still do so much damage with this weapon. For her budget build, you don't really have to do too much. She already comes with Attack Res Solo 4, which she got from her remix, so that is really good skill. And for her special, you could go with Glimmer, and it is absolutely the best special for her because of her damage output. And you could have Attack Speed Solo Sacred Seal. Slot C is really flexible. You can run some cavalry skills, or run Attack Smoke on a budget, or even go with Resistance Smoke if you can't do that. You can also get Rouse Attack Resistance from Spring Soleil, and that will have good synergy with her solo skills, and that just will help her boost her damage output and her resistance. And finally, if you want to invest heavily into her, then Attack Speed Catch is a really good skill because she can debuff the opponents, so that will activate the catch condition, and she does want the opponents to be at full HP for the full effect of this, and that is good because she will just one-shot most of the opponents. So if you want to invest heavily into her, then a catch skill is really good. And you can also go with Panic Smoke in her slot C because keep in mind that panic debuffs and the visible debuffs that she does from Chilling Seal 2 will stack up. So that will give her even more mileage out of her Pelagian effect especially, and also the Broadleaf Fan effect that Blizzard has. So these two skills are really good at high investment. Keep in mind that Savage Blow might be a slot C skill that you could run, but you will not be able to get the -4 speed and resistance debuff if the foe falls below that threshold HP. So that's why mostly Smoke skills, Rouse skill, and also Panic Smoke is much better as an option. Green Dual Cavalry 4 has not come out yet, but it is going to be inevitable because it's the only one that is missing out of the Cavalry dual skills. So when that comes out, Gunnthra is going to be a fantastic win to legendary unit because she's got a 300 SP slot B skill, which means that if you run the dual skill and run a 300 SP slot C skill, then you can score as a 180 BST legendary unit, which is really good for an old legendary unit like Gunnthra to just move up her scoring. And she can also support your team with Chilling Seal 2 and also just provide you with a lot of damage output. So having a ranged cavalry unit as your legendary unit who can also support and hit really hard is really amazing. I've used Gunnthra quite a bit after her remix in Aether's offense, and she packs a punch, and after her weapon refine, it's even better. So even at low investment, Gunnthra can be a really good unit to be used in Aether's offense because of her mobility, the Chilling Seal support, and also the fact that she can help you in the cleanup. But keep in mind that Chilling Seal 2's debuffs might activate restore traps, so you gotta watch out for that, but honestly she's gonna be a really good unit when the win season coincides with Aether's offense. And if you want to invest a lot more into her, then you can of course go with Panic Smoke. You can run some other slotty skills as well, but Attacker Solo is quite fine for Aether's offense in my experience because most of the threats are gonna be magically based, so the extra resistance does help. Panic Smoke is really nice because, you know, stuff like Mirabilis can give the extra attack to the opponent. Many Mirabilis will run defense res gaps, so that's really good to just panic them. And not to mention, many of the odd recovery teams will be utilizing stat buffs, so Panic Smoke there is really good, especially when it stacks up with her regular debuffs. And for her special, Miracle is pretty nice. It might seem a bit weird at first, but honestly her damage output at this kind of investment is going to be so high that you don't really need any kind of damaging special. I've used Miracle on my Gunnthra as well as Broadleaf Fan Soth, and Miracle is honestly a lifesaver many times for these kinds of high damage output units who might die at times. So Miracle is honestly not that bad of an option at higher investments when she's going to be hitting really hard. One problem which I ran into while using Gunnthra in my Aether's offense runs was that she does not have very good matchup against Farsafe Brave Hector, and those are really common. So unfortunately, unlike Cecilia, she cannot really run Lancebreaker because she has to run Chilling Seal too. And like I said, Brave Hector, despite being blue, can still be an eyesore for her because of Malted's debuff neutralization. And then finally, if you want to use her in Aether's defense because she's a cavalry unit, and if you want to invest even more into her, then you can go with an ARD skill and also have Panic Smoke, and Blade Session can give her even more attack. For her IVs, obviously plus attack IV is the best one because she excels in one-shotting units, so plus attack helps with that. Even though speed might seem useful, mostly a plus attack IV is going to be giving you more mileage with this kind of playstyle and weapon refine. A while back, Fjorm got a remix in Ice Mirror 2 and Attack Defense Unity, and now she has got her weapon refine. So honestly, she got a much better weapon refine than I first expected, and that is good, but still there are some things which have to be talked about, as you'll see. So Fjorm's weapon refine gives her +4 attack, +4 speed, and +8 resistance and defense in the enemy phase, which is mostly going to be her playstyle in the enemy phase, so it can definitely help her bring up to the speed with the modern stats of the common units nowadays, so that is good. And then the other effect of her weapon refine is debuff neutralization, so that is very strong because debuffs are very common in the meta, as you can see with Gunnthra, and any kind of debuff neutralization like on Branya, on Brave Hector, on Noe's weapon refine is going to be a really useful thing. And debuff neutralization is especially going to be really good in Aether raids where she is a rotating bonus unit in the Asuka trio slot. Unfortunately, her weapon refine is really anti-synergetic with the remix skill Attack Defense Unity, and this is pretty much what you have seen a lot of people talk about. So the Unity effect is going to get disabled because of the weapon refine, so that's really annoying if you want to use her on a budget. And a lot of people have had their confusion with this kind of interaction, so I have some tests which I've done, and this will definitely help you clear your doubts. So here we have got her weapon refine and the Unity skill active. She gets +8 defense from her refine, +5 defense from her slotty skill, and then she gets +7 defense from the neutralization of penalty from the refine, which adds up to +20 defense. There's no stat swing here from the debuffs, and this is a chill debuff that she's facing, chill defense. So there's no stat swing here because Unity effect is completely disabled. And you can compare this to when she has got no weapon refine and she's got a Unity skill and she's affected by a chill defense. So +5 defense from Unity skill is going to be there, of course, but the defense debuff does get swinged by getting it doubled. So she ends up with +19 defense even without her weapon refine. Now, just to make it absolutely clear that her Unity skill is always going to be disabled with her weapon refine, you can see the overall defense that she gets with her weapon refine and Unity, and with her weapon refine and her old attack defense bond that she also comes with. And in both of these pictures in the combat preview, you can see that she's still getting only +20 defense. So the Unity effect, which can swing debuffs in your favor, is literally disabled, and it's just a glorified better bond skill at this point. So it doesn't have good synergy with Unity skills, and we have got a lot of units like these with debuff neutralization like Branya, Noe, and you'll never see them run any kind of unity skill that the unity effect just gets disabled, so it's not a good option. So it's really anti-synergetic with her remix skill, which is really annoying. I wish she got some kind of stand skill instead, because that would have been much useful. So you pretty much have to change her slotted skill by spending some resources. Now, despite the anti-synergy with the remix skill, this weapon refine is pretty good. Like I explained before, debuff neutralization is nothing to scoff at, especially when it's present on a distant counter weapon. So it's a pretty good weapon refine for a free-to-play unit, all things considered, in my opinion. Now, even though distant counter and debuff neutralization is strong, at the end of the day, she's still an old unit, and those old stats will hinder her performance at times. And I say this as a person who does have a plus 10 Fjorm on my main account, and I've had her for many years. And I've also tested her quite a bit with our new weapon refine. So against many of the threats, this thing is going to be true, but now when you're going to be using her, she's much better as a unit because of the debuff neutralization and the extra stats. So for her budget build, you pretty much have to replace attack defense unity if you want to get more stats, because I mean, you can keep attack defense unity, but keep in mind you're not going to be getting the unity effect. It's just a glorified better bond skill, so there are not too many good budget options. Speed rest form from Wrath is an option, attack defense form from Zealot is also an option, so you could do that if you just want to run her at ultra budget and just have shield pulse and quick riposte. Ice Mirror is still a decent special, but unfortunately it doesn't work against melee units, but mostly you can use her as a ranged check with Ice Mirror 2 and that should be fine. You can also run her with a stand skill, and it's pretty much going to be one of her best options in slot A. It is present in the Divine Codes 2 section, so you could obtain it rather easily, and Mirror Stance 3 is going to be a really good option because Ice Mirror does do damage based off her resistance, and Mirror Stance is pretty good with that. And Fjorm honestly needs the extra attack, so I would say that plus attack IV is going to be a bit better for her in most cases, because at times her damage output can be lacking, and nowadays we have just so many bulky units that can be hard for her to finish them off at times. So I personally prefer plus attack IV. Now, like I said before, she is a rotating bonus unit in Aether raids in the Asuka trio slot, and Fjorm's weapon refine is really good in Aether raids, so you could use her at low merges in Aether raids with her bonus stats, which will make her look like this, and she can be a really nice range check. And most of the units which you're going to be facing in Aether raids offense are going to be range units, so Ice Mirror and Shield Pulse are still going to be quite decent, and you can definitely pair her up with someone like Brave Lucina to get the special charges for her Ice Mirror. If you want to invest heavily into her, then you can definitely go with a breath skill in slot A, which can charge up her shield pulse, but I don't really prefer the breath skills too much in slot A because we do have support units like Brave Lucina and Nero Veluria. In my opinion, stand skills are pretty much going to be her best option because they have the guard effect, and that is really good for a tank, and that will prevent her from getting blown up by specials, and she's mainly an enemy phase unit, so it does work out pretty well. And Swift Stance is a pretty good option because it will give her extra speed, and she does get +4 speed from her weapon as well, so she can be decently fast, and that will allow her to double on her own, especially if you run Lord skill, joint drive speed, and also attack speed solo. So the extra attack is going to be helpful from there, and a Lord skill is really nice because she can just ignore any kind of visible buffs on the opponent. So with the damage reduction build, you definitely want to run plus speed over plus attack to get the most out of the damage reduction skill, and you can pretty much run Ice Mirror or even Moonbow if you want to. Ice Mirror is also not a bad option because when it's not going to be triggering, you're still going to be getting the damage reduction from her slot B, and she reaches 57 speed without any kind of outside help or support or boost, so that is pretty good for the damage reduction skill. Debuff neutralization isn't as useful in Arena as it is in Aether raids, but still you can run a build like this. Unfortunately, again, Ice Mirror not being able to give her the damage reduction and the extra damage output against melee units is going to be sucking, and you're just not going to be facing range units like you do in Aether raids. So that's why replacing her Ice Mirror with Ruptured Sky or any other special is going to be helpful. And you can run lull attack speed because everyone and their mom runs some kind of rally skill in Arena, so that can help you with a plus speed IV. But null follow up and plus attack IV is something I prefer more, so that could be done for Arena, and null follow up will help you with the auto follow ups that many of the units have in Arena, which you're going to be facing. Now, if you want to use her in Aether raids offense, which is pretty much her best mode, where she functions the best because of the debuff neutralization, then you can run her with Nullsea and Mirror Stance, and Nullsea will allow her to take care of the healers, and her high resistance is especially really useful in Aether raids offense, where a lot of the threats are going to be magically based. You can use her in the light season where she'll get extra resistance from dagger and air, which is really good for her damage output with Ice Mirror, and she already has pretty good resistance, and that's going to be helpful against facing a lot of ranged threats with the Note teams as usual. And a support like Brave Lucina can help her with Ice Mirror, but even without that, she's going to be pretty good. You can also use her with a damage reduction build in Aether rates along with Ice Mirror. Kestrel Stance is really good for this application, and you can get Kestrel Stance and Close Call from Seri whenever Kestrel Stance 2 is easily available. And speed stacking is really easy in the light season because of Peony, so again, she finds her home in that season and can take care of the ranged threats. You can also run Null Follow-Up on her slot B, but even against many of the auto follow-up units, she does a pretty decent job like Dual Lift and Bramimon because of her high resistance and the guard effect. Both male and female Grima get Expiration Weapon Refine, and female Grima did get a remix this month as well, which gave her Dragon Skin 2 and also Speed Res Rain as a new skill for her slot C. So Expiration gets a bit of an upgrade, giving you easy +4 to all of your stats, and also the guard effect if you're above 25% HP. And the guard effect is really useful for any kind of tank because it will prevent the special charges of the opponent. So that is going to be helping you with your longevity, and you're not going to be getting blown up by the specials. Female Grima, in my opinion, gets it better because of her remix, so she gets Dragon Skin 2. So with that and her Weapon Refine, she can get +10 to all of her stats during the combat and also the guard effect. And Dragon Skin 2 has the Iode Shield skill built into it, which means that she doesn't have weakness to the bow units. She's going to be getting +6 to all of her stats always in the enemy phase, but if you want to get that in the player phase, then the opponent needs to be above 75% HP, which is not really all that hard to do. And then it has got the Dull All effect, which will neutralize any kind of foe's visible buffs, which is super good in many of the matchups, especially when flyers do not have access to lull skills or things of that nature. So female Grima ends up having a much better mix phase because she can actually utilize her speed productively and function both in the player phase and in the enemy phase. Unfortunately, dragons do not have access to a lot of the player phase tools which other units get, but still overall she's going to be functioning really well. And the fact that female Grima is colorless is going to be a bit better for tanking in my opinion, and there's also not much competition for her as a colorless dragon outside of like Spring Myr. On the other hand, for male Grima, the competition is quite fierce for a green armor unit, and for a green armor dragon, there's also Nagi present, and just for green armor units in general, we do have Brave Edelgard and Gustav and units like those. So male Grima has still a lot of competition, but female Grima on the other hand has it a bit better because of her color, her Dragon Skin 2, the remix that she's obtained, and also her flyer mobility, which is going to be helpful many times. So overall, their Weapon Refine isn't the strongest thing ever, but with the combination of the remix that female Grima got, it is actually pretty good for her, and she does get a notable upgrade with these two things. So let's talk about her builds. On a budget, you can definitely go with Crooked Post in the slot B. We don't have too many options available, and slot A and slot C don't really need to be changed. You can run Moonbow or Glimmer as 2-turn specials, which you can trigger in a single round of combat, and Bonfire is also an option if you don't really want to change that. Mystic Boost is going to be giving you the healing, which is really synergetic with her Weapon Refinery HP Threshold and also with Crooked Post. Female Grima has been present on so many legendary banners back in the day when she used to dominate the colorless pool, so many people do have merges on her, and if you want to run a max investment or a high investment build, then here are some of the options. Dragon's Ire is a really good option because it's basically a better Crooked Post, and it can help you get past the impact effects, so that is really nice. And with that, you can definitely go with a plus attack Ivy, which is going to be helpful in her damage output, and again, Mystic Boost is going to be providing you the self-sufficiency. For her special, a 2-turn special is ideal like Glimmer or Moonbow. And then we move on to the Dragon Wall Grima. This I believe is pretty much her best slot B option at max investment. So you might think, she only has 33 resistance, how is Dragon Wall viable? But keep in mind that she pretty much gets +10 resistance from her Dragon Skin and Expiration. Not to mention, the rain skill that she has will reduce the resistance of the opponent, so it actually helps her with Dragon Wall triggering. And you can also run a Sacred Seal that can help boost your resistance. So with this build, she effectively hits 53 resistance, and not many offensive threats are going to be having that much resistance to really contest her. So that's why I feel like Dragon Wall is pretty much Grima's best option at max investment. You need max investment. At lower merges, this is not going to be all that potent because you need the extra resistance and the bulk that she gets from merges, so that's why it's a really good option. And most of the high investment Grimas are going to be running that. And Grima gets really bulky with this because she gets the damage reduction from Dragon Wall, she has got guard effect from her Weapon Refine, and she also has the Dull All effect from Dragon Skin, so that is really good defensively. She's of course going to be useful in Arena for scoring as a legendary unit, but unfortunately she's one of the older ones and she will not be scoring as high as the modern pair-up legendary units, but still she can be utilized there, and she's definitely a lot better there because she has got the distant counter weapon, so she can bait out many of the ranged threats. And she also has the dull all effect from Dragon Skin, which will neutralize any kind of visible buffs of the opponents. And like I always say, everyone and their mom runs rally skill in Arena, so that is really good for Arena usage. But still, she will have to watch out for, dragon effective weapons and many of the oppressive threats, which are still going to be doing quite a lot to her. Many of the threats like Legendary Chrom do run impact skills, so Dragon's Ire lets you bypass those. And Mystic Boost can be really good for the self-sufficiency. Unfortunately for her special, she only has options of Aether or Blue Flame. Of the two, Blue Flame is going to be a bit better because of its lower cooldown. You can also use her in Aether Raid's offense whenever Earth Season coincides, and in Aether Raid's offense, Dragon Wall is going to be the build that you want to run because with Air, with Dagger, you can get extra resistance, and offensive threats are not going to be having as much resistance as she does. Like 63 resistance is a lot, and she can get a lot bulkier, and that allows her to deal with a lot of the modern threats much better. Plus attack IV is going to be helping because many of the Aether Raid's defense units are going to be pretty bulky, so that extra damage output is always going to be useful, and I pretty much prefer like plus attack IV on her honestly, but if you're running some kind of Dragon Wall build like this, then plus speed IV can be an option, but my preference is plus attack IV as it will help her damage output, especially if you're running Dragon's Ire, then plus attack is a bit better as you're already pretty fast and you have your follow-ups. But plus speed can be helpful in the player phase, but most of the time you're going to be using her as an enemy phase unit. If you don't want to run Dragon Wall, then you can also go with Dragon's Ire, which will help you bypass the impact effects, and a lot of ranged threats are going to be having the impact effects, but overall she's going to be a lot bulkier with the Dragon Wall build. Wall Grima unfortunately doesn't have his remix, but here are some of the builds for him. So on a budget you can definitely go with Attack Defense Form and the Sacred Seal of the same, and you can get it from Zealot, so that is going to be helpful for stacking up his attack and his defense. And Vengeful Fighter is completely fine skill that he already comes with, and the guard effect is especially really useful for him because he's quite slow compared to Female Grima, so he's gonna get doubled a lot more, and having that guard effect is really good for his longevity. If you want to use him in Arena Assault, then Sylvalan Shield is an option because it lets you check Legendary Chrom and not die to him and to his armor effective damage, so you can do that. And Vengeful Fighter is going to be useful for charging up your Ignis, and the guard effect does help you with tanking as well. At higher investments, Wall Grima used to run a stance 4 skill, but now it's a bit redundant because he already gets the guard effect from his Weapon Refine, so that's why other options which are not stance skills are more preferable on him after his Weapon Refine. Fortress Defense Res is a nice option for increasing his bulk, and again you can just run his default Vengeful Fighter. Armor March will help with the mobility, and Mystic Boost does help you with the healing. A Breath skill is definitely a fine option for Wall Grima because Brave Lucina's weapon is not going to be helping dragons with their acceleration, and Fierce Breath along with his high attack stat, his attack Superboon, is going to be really good when you pair it up with Glimmer, so you can pretty much retaliate back with Glimmer. And because we're already getting the special acceleration from his slot A, you don't really need to run Vengeful Fighter, so Slick Fighter becomes a much better option for him. And especially because he's an armor unit, he has got higher stats, Slick Fighter is going to be helping you neutralize any kind of debuff, and you can of course go with near save with this kind of build, and in my opinion he's a bit better near save user than he is as a far save user, mainly because he's got better defense, and when it comes to being a far save unit he will have to face a lot of red threats like Legendary Lilina and Dual Lift, so I feel like he works a bit better as a near save tank, and Attack Defense Form has got really good synergy with a save skill. You can also run a Unity skill. I think those are really good option after Grima's Weapon Refine, so that will help you combat debuffs. So if you can combat debuffs with a Unity skill or Slick Fighter, that is going to be preferable, and you can run the near save skill. You can also run far save on him, and in that case, Attack Res Unity is going to be a bit better with Attack Respond just to stack up his resistance for the magical matchups. Gerome got a new weapon in Masking Axe, and he has also got a Weapon Refine, so he still retains his cavalry effectiveness from Poleaxe, and he has got some extra effects on his weapon. So first of all, he gets +5 attack and defense in the enemy phase always, but in the player phase if you want to get that, then the foe needs to be above 75% HP. And then for his Refine effect, it pretty much reflects on his personality, so there are 2 solo effects. If he's solo, then he can inflict -5 attack and defense on foe during the combat, and then he also has Rouse Attack defense built into this weapon. So flyers cannot really access rouse skills, they only have oath skills. So this is unique to him, but still it's just a self buff in a sense that can just double down on his two most used stats, which is attack and defense. So with this weapon, he can effectively get plus 16 attack, plus 16 defense, and also plus 5 resistance in the both phases if all of the effects are active from this weapon. Now, this weapon refine is pretty decent for doubling down on his niche, but I wish he got something unique like some kind of follow-up or some kind of better quick riposte, or even just get guard bearing as the other effect instead of having rouse attack defense, because I feel like it's not really the hardest thing to give any unit any kind of visible buffs like attack tactic, gap skills, opening skills. There are just so many options, and I feel like if he got any kind of unique effect that would have been a bit better, because he's pretty much a big ball of stats right now, which is good for his niche, but he would have stood out a bit more if he had something more unique like a follow-up or something like that. But still, he's basically going to be a cav counter, and he's going to be having really high defense. So if you want to build him up on a budget, then he can definitely be used in Arena Assault. If you see like Dusil, Ingrid, or any of those cavalry units in Arena Assaults, then he can just be deployed for his cavalry effectiveness, and he will hit really hard and also easily tank them in the enemy phase. If you want to run him with double solo skills, then that's an option, and 4-star Spring Minerva did have attack defense solo, so you can just stack it up, and this will be active in both phases. And quick riposte is really nice for his slot B because that's the only way he can really double in the enemy phase. And if you want to invest heavily into him, then a tier 3 stand skill is really good for him because it gives him the guard effect, and that's going to be invaluable for any kind of tank. And you can also run guard bearing in slot B and have quick riposte. Attack defense rain goes perfectly well with his weapon. Again, you can run him with double solo skills, and attack defense rain is going to be nice. And if you want to use him with Wyvern Flight, then that's an option as well because he can buff himself up. And keep in mind that Wyvern Flight does function off the visible stats. So he does have a speed Superboon, and that can be used productively with Wyvern Flight. So this is a lot more unique build that he can pull off. And the rouse attack defense from his weapon refine actually comes into the play here. So this can allow him to get more attack and defense debuffs. And his speed is decent enough to trigger Wyvern Flight, so he can utilize that defensively as well to prevent some doubles. And then if you want to fully invest into his speed, then something like this could be run with double solo skills and have the near trace skill. So that's just the speed Superboon fully utilized. He can also be used with distant counter honestly at max investment with summoner support because he's going to be having 42 resistance essentially with this kind of build, because the attack debuff from his weapon is really useful and also increasing his magical bulk. So that's an option, and of course he can be used in Arena with Green Dual Flying 4. And now that he's got a preferred weapon, he doesn't really need to run a 300 SP slot C skill, so he can just go for attack defense rain, and guard bearing is going to be really helpful in a game mode like Arena, and guard bearing can be really helpful for giving him the damage reduction. Spring Catria had a really similar weapon to Spring Shirina, but she ends up getting the better refine in my opinion. So she ends up getting chill attack and chill speed in her primary effect, and she can get plus 5 attack and speed during the combat if foe is above 75% HP. And then the weapon refine can give her additional plus 5 attack and speed, which is always going to be active in the player phase. But if you want to activate it in the enemy phase, then you need to be within 2 spaces of an ally, which is not all that hard to do in the enemy phase. And then she gets 30% damage reduction on foe's first hit. So all of these effects can work in both phases if the conditions are met, and this makes her pretty similar to Winterburn and Deadeye in a sense because she's got that offensive role and also the damage reduction. Of course, she doesn't have the 1 damage from Priest, which can enable return traps and so many other strategies in Aether 8's defense, but still, overall because of the damage reduction, she can function similarly as a mage cavalry unit. And because of that, she is different compared to Reinhardt, Selena, or so many other blue mage cavalry units. So she is a bit unique because of her support and offensive hybrid role. And the damage reduction can definitely help her get into the desperation range and actually be annoying in something like Aether 8's defense. So that is not to be underestimated. And the extra offenses are really nice because she is an old unit, so it pretty much brings her up to the speed of the modern cavalry units and the modern power level that we have in the game. So on a budget, she can still work with Fury and Desperation, and she can still get pretty fast if you run something like Blade Session. And you can also run double solo skills because Luthier does have attack speed solo, so that's an option. And again, even at lower investments like this, she can get really fast. And if you want to invest a bit more into her, then you can definitely go with a push skill and have lull speed resistance or even lull attack speed. So that is going to be a nice option on her, and because of the damage reduction, she can definitely make use of this a bit better than a lot of the other frail mage cavalry units, and a rouse skill will synergize well with a solo sacred seal. Of course, you can also run double solo skills, and you can even make use of the Fortress skill. And like I said before, even if she's not running Desperation, because of the damage reduction, it does make it a bit better for her, and she can pretty much use the counter effect from the Fortress skill. Of course, this is going to be much useful in the player's hands. And you can also run a cat skill on her because she does get the chill attack and chill speed on her weapons, so she can utilize those debuffs to activate the condition of catch. And you can also run a smoke skill in slot C to synergize well with it, and lull attack speed can definitely help her, and you can even run attack defense solo because at max investment like this, she's going to be incredibly fast. So you can run things which can increase her bulk as she will get the damage reduction, and she can also be used in arena, and in arena the chill attack and chill speed is going to be pretty helpful. And damage reduction is really good in arena because units there are going to be hitting incredibly hard, and because her damage reduction is also present in the enemy phase, you can also at times use her to bait out enemies, and because of the damage reduction, it is going to be a bit better for her, and because of her high speed, she's not going to get naturally doubled that much. So that's always an option. You can also use her with a Fortress skill, and that can help you quite a lot in arena because we don't have positional skills. So that can help you with the counter movement and just give you more player phase potential and just movement options really. She can be used in Aether Raid's defense as well, similar to Winter Bernadetta, but keep in mind that the damage reduction that she gets on the first hit can always be bypassed by units who run quick riposte or have any kind of follow-up. So they can just hit her for the second time, and on the second hit she's not going to be having any kind of damage reduction and she will die. So someone like Summer Mia, who also gets the damage reduction, also has a similar issue, but of course her damage reduction is way higher. Still, Catria can be used with ARD defense res to pump up her bulk and also run Blade Session to pump up her offenses. Finally, we have got Dorcas with a Stout Tomahawk weapon refine, and he does have that distant counter weapon, but this refine isn't everything that he needed. In some of the game modes, you can definitely utilize this. So this weapon refine is pretty straightforward. He can get -5 attack and defense debuff on foe during the combat. He can also get this in the player phase for some reason, even though he's mostly enemy phase unit, but for triggering this in the enemy phase, you basically need to be within 2 spaces of an ally. So that is quite easy to trigger on an enemy phase unit, and he also gets the dull all effect to ignore any kind of visible buffs from foes. So this is honestly a pretty tame weapon refine, and he has got a lot of competition when it comes to axe tanks. I feel like with his weapon, he does best in arena game mode because he's one of the best green dual infantry users because of his distant counter weapon and the fact that he can, bait out range units like Legendary Crom and still deal with them. And the dull all effect is really useful because arena is a game mode where everyone uses rally skills. So there he pretty much works the best, but outside of that, it's not really all that impressive. It's kind of disappointing to me that they didn't use the meme route with this weapon refine like they did for Oliver, because it definitely had the potential to maybe make him immune to some status effects or stuff like that. Just any kind of additional effect would have been pretty nice. So his weapon refine is quite simple, and I feel like he definitely needed a lot more in the modern times. On the budget side, he already comes with Fierce Stance and Quick Repose, so you can just go with Attack Smoke and have Mirror Stance to help with his magical bulk. And at higher investments, you can definitely run a Unity skill, so that is going to be a good option, and Mystic Boost is going to be helping you with the self-sufficiency and the healing. Bonfire does work out pretty well as a special, and you can also run Mirror Stance 3 as his slotted skill, and his stance skill is going to be helping him quite a bit because he's not the fastest unit, so he's going to get doubled quite a lot, so that just helps a tank like him. And finally, like I said, he works best in arena with this kind of weapon refine, so that's pretty much his best game mode, and you can run this build and that will help you against many of the common arena threats like Legendary Crom, Legendary Leaf, and Time Pulse with Ruptured Sky is really good because he can instantly retaliate back with Ruptured Sky when he's baiting them in the enemy phase. And because of this weapon refine, he no longer needs to run lull attack defense in his slot B, and he can simply run Quick Repose and have attack defense form as a sacred seal to boost up his defenses, which will make his matchups better, and boost up his attack, which is going to be making his one-shots with Ruptured Sky and Time Pulse much better. So those were the weapon refines for this month, and Gunnthra easily won this batch with her insane Blizzard weapon refine. So let me know what are your thoughts on these weapon refines in the comment section down below, and make sure to share this video with your friends who are trying to build up any of these units who have got these new weapon refines. I definitely went in depth with a lot of their builds. So I want to thank all of my team members for the constant support, and if you enjoyed, then please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me tremendously, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Unity effect of Fjorm with her weapon refine. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.